Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome. Etienne here from Lifetime Bookbinding and Restoration. I am based in Durban, South Africa. Today I'm going to be showing you how I went about restoring a extra large family Bible. As you can see, it was in pretty bad condition. When it came to me, it had tape stuck all over the Bible as well as on the inside. The tape was then carefully removed and all the damage was mended with wheat starch paste and Japanese tissue paper. The spine was then cleaned up, all the old materials removed. The title page was missing and a new title page was found online, edited and blended to match the rest of the pages. The corners were worn quite badly and in some cases missing completely, so these get mended with new leather to the corners. But first the corners get built up with a mixture of wheat paste and wood filings, and then it gets covered with the leather, and as you can see, it makes it as good as new. The book then gets edge sewn with a piece of calico and some linen thread. This is to ensure that the front sections of the front and the back do not come off, and it also adds a support when the calico gets pasted onto the boards. The spine then gets lined with acid-free paper, which is well pasted and smoothed down with the bone folder. Headbands get sewn to the head and the tail of the book using a good quality thread. Afterwards, the headbands get aged. This is done by applying some brown leather dye to the headbands with a small brush to make the headbands look as old as the rest of the book. As you can see, the end sheets were pretty worn and faded, so I decided to have new end sheets printed on acid-free paper. This got pasted onto the board and you can see what it looked like afterwards. The leather then gets lifted with a lifting knife on the outside as well as on the inside. I used a first grade kip butt leather from a tannery in Pietermaritzburg. This is a really good quality leather, as I only wanted the finest leather for this Bible. Very durable and very tough. The leather first gets edge paired. Then gets skived using French knives. I always make sure that I bring it down to the right thickness. And then once the skiving has been done, I edge pair the leather again to bring it down to a feathered edge. I then get rid of the corners as they don't really need to be there, they get in the way, so they just get pared down to a rounded edge. And after what seemed much longer than it probably was, I got it done. The boards were sitting a bit unevenly on the joint area, so they got trimmed to a straight edge to ensure that they fit properly. The leather then gets dyed using a water-based aniline leather dye. This leather dye I got from J. Hewitt & Sons. They are based in Scotland. It really is a great leather dye and it leaves a really nice finish. It's also great for when you want to do gold or blind tooling because it absorbs a lot of moisture for those processes. The next thing to do is to put the old spine leather onto the spine. However, if I was to just put it on like this, you would have a ridge on the top and the bottom. So I have to put a piece of material there, the same thickness as this leather. Brown craft paper is pasted out and stuck together to give the same thickness as the leather. The spine leather is then trimmed to give you a nice straight edge on either side. Then put on top of the craft paper and traced out. And then after being cut out, I fit it in, and as you can see it fits properly on both sides. And then the leather gets put back onto the spine and the same lines get traced out. And then it gets glued and stuck on. And there we go, you can see it's a perfect fit. And now for the covering of the book, the leather then gets pasted out 3 or 4 times. And then the leather gets folded to ensure that the paste is kept nice and moist inside. I stretch the leather a little bit, ensuring that I don't crease it. And then after about 5 to 8 minutes, I open up the leather again and I paste it out again. And then taking the well pasted leather, I place it under the existing leather onto the boards. I make sure that it sits properly onto the boards and around the spine. And I then do the same with the other side, pressing it onto the board, making sure that it's adhering properly all over. And then once I'm satisfied the leather is sticking properly, I put it on its side on the table and take the board off onto the table and move the text block out of the way. I then go ahead and turn in the head and the tail leather, pressing it onto the board, making sure that it adheres properly. It does tend to lift from these areas, so you have to use continued diligence to ensure that it sticks properly. Also using the bone folder, I creased the leather over the board edges to ensure that the head caps are going to turn out well. By this time the paste would have dried a little, so I add some more paste. Text block gets put back onto the book, ensuring that it's square all the way around. The boards then get put back onto the text block. I then just check that everything is adhered properly and that the leather has stuck down evenly all over. I then tie up the book at the head and the tail. This is so that I can form the head caps. But first, a clean sheet of white paper is put under the string, and using the bone folder I smooth down the leather on the board as well as on the spine. The head caps then get formed using the bone folder to tap down the leather so that it pulls over the headband and creates a head cap for the headband. With the leather still being wet, the bone folder allows you to pull over the leather to the right distance so that you've got really good looking head caps. The Bible then gets left on the edge of the table overnight, and then the next day you can see that the leather has dried on the spine, and I'll just give it a once over to ensure that everything is stuck properly and that nothing is lifting, which in this case everything was perfect. The next thing would be to stick this piece of leather down. So I take some paste and paste out the crevice of the leather and the board to ensure that I've got enough paste in there. And then using a bigger brush, just apply paste to the edges of the leather. And then finally just massaging it all in with my fingers to ensure that there are no dry spots. And pressing it down, and it sticks really well. Next thing to do is to stick down the piece of calico that was sewn into the book. I do this by tracing out the perimeter of the calico on the board. I then glue out the traced out area, ensuring that I've got a generous amount of glue on the joint area as well, so that the calico will stick down well in that area. I then pull the calico up tightly over onto the board and push it down with my fingers to smooth it out evenly all over and all along. And here's a close-up of what it looked like afterwards. A strip of paper that matches the end sheet then gets torn off all along to give you a feathered edge. This then gets glued out and gets stuck onto the board. And then lastly is to stick down the existing end sheet, and I once again apply glue to this area all over and on the edges to ensure that it will stick down really well. Then there is another marbled page that gets stuck on the strip of paper that was stuck down, but you will see that at the end when I show what the marbled paper looked like. And there we go, it stuck down and it turned out really well. I put some wax paper in some board and close it up and put it in the press for a couple of minutes. And then the old spine leather gets stuck onto the new leather. It gets pasted out generously and then smoothed down once again with the bone folder. And then the following day, finally, I go ahead and touch up all the old, frayed or damaged areas of the spine with some spirit-based black leather dye. And here we go. Here's the Bible as it turned out in the end. I applied some leather dressing, some neatsfoot oil mixed with beeswax, and you can see how lovely it turned out. So as this project concludes, I am truly grateful and privileged to have restored life back into such an amazing Bible. I'm also honored to have played a part in its continued use for generations to come.